Chris Cuomo is all set to take over. You've got Bill O'Reilly on tonight. Lots to discuss.
Don't remind me. No, thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable. Please don't miss the forest for the trees with these demonstrations. We have bigger issues than the political and legal battles that are playing out about ICE or deploying troops. They matter, but not as much as what I want to talk to you about. We have bigger problems at play on streets all over our country. Dozens of protests have erupted throughout the country. You know that, right? We're focused on LA, but they're all over the place. And they are all related, and we're not talking about it. So we're doing the work here at NewsNation to connect the dots. And I have a lawmaker on tonight that's starting the same drive in Congress. And I'm telling you, these protests are not really just about ICE. They are a coordinated effort to recruit as many people and different types of groups that may have different ideas, but they all share a common goal: destroying the West, democracy, our country. This is the fundamentalist threat playing out. We're just not calling it that because we're not seeing it like that because we're so caught in this right versus left BS. The latest salvo after the embassy shootings, the IVF clinic, the healthcare CEO murder, the campus chaos, now it's these. It's all part of a growing fundamentalism that is the biggest threat to all of us. You got neo-nationalists in the same place as far-left radical anarchists and extreme Islamists. This is not organic. It's not just protest. It's not one community coming together to fight oppressive tactics. It's not really about ICE, I'm telling you. And most important and most dangerous is that there's clearly organization and funding of these protests. Two questions: who and why? Now, let's start with the truth. It's not uncommon for protests to receive funding and organization from political groups. I had a guy on the show who pays people to protest. I mean, that's a thing, okay, but not these. These protests are fed by dark sources with a desire for our destruction. One of the main players in organizing and funding the Los Angeles protests is a group called CHIRLA, okay? C-H-I-R-L-A, acronym. Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights, Immigrants' Rights, whatever. Dig a little, and that starts to look like a misnomer. They have received millions in government grants and state grants, but now reports are showing that there may be a foreign link, specifically from China, funding and organizing these protests. Where in China? Who in China? The pro-Chinese far-left Party for Socialism and Liberation. They're known as the PSL. They are working with CHIRLA, helping fund the protests in Los Angeles and maybe elsewhere. Remember, all the parties in China are controlled by the CCP. So this is China. And the party is pushing to destroy capitalism and the West. This is its agenda. This is what China wants. They even have a term for the effort. It's called the smokeless war, where they have this theory of how they'll destroy the West without actually taking to the battlefield. That's what they did during the anti-Israel campus protests. The PSL worked hand in glove with anti-Zionist student groups and helped organize and fund the Columbia campus encampments. Now it gets scarier. Where does the PSL get its money? Enter Shanghai-based socialist billionaire Neville Singham. 2017, he sold his tech company for about $1 billion. Reports show the same year he started funding far-left groups like the PSL to the tune of millions. Singham is not America's friend. He has deep business ties to the CCP, but also has strong ideological ties to communism, period. People who worked for him says he's an admirer of Mao, Che Guevara, Hugo Chavez, not friends of American culture. According to the New York Times, Singham has funded and developed a deep global empire of pro-China nonprofits in the media and grassroots political space, steering millions into these groups over the years, including the PSL. And guess who was associated with the PSL and other Singham-funded groups? Elias Rodriguez. Ring a bell? This scumbag, the 30-year-old Chicago man who murdered 2 Israeli staffers in cold blood last month to make a political point. Remember, he just waited to be taken in. That is fundamentalism. Now, is this Chinese sabotage part of the negotiations with China and the president and the administration? Probably not. And that is probably a mistake. You see, we are too focused on these fringe fights, fabricated division to drive podcast followings and media cycles, fringe agendas. We are missing the big picture. And you know why? Because it doesn't allow one side to have an advantage over the other. That's how stupid our politics has gotten. Look at how what is happening here is the same as the echo of what we're seeing all over the world. Look at what happened in the Middle East today. So Trump is pushing on Iran, right? And the risk of violence in response to that is on the rise because that's what Iran does. The UK just issued a dire warning to its ships in the Persian Gulf that there could be a military escalation. What do you think that means they're hearing on the intelligence side? Then hours later, our State Department announced it's evacuating personnel from the Middle East. This is why I keep saying we need to stop fighting with each other when there is a growing threat to kill all of us. We've been here before. And somehow, in our collective conscience, we get bored that if something happened, well, that's it, it happened, and it can't happen again. There's no reason to deal with the lessons of the past. That is the definition of insanity. It can happen again. Terrorism is real. Fundamentalism is real and on the rise. Now, the good news is there are members of Congress that, despite the pressure to make a deal with China and to be nice with China, they are worried about China's connection to the growth of fundamentalism in this country. Specifically, member of Congress from Florida, Republican Anna Paulina Luna, announced she's issuing a formal document request to Neville Singham, the guy I was telling you about. Why? Is he trying to fund our demise? She says if he refuses to comply, he will be referred to the DOJ for prosecution. Anna Paulina Luna, APL as I call her, joins me now. Thank you for joining me, Congressman.
Hey, Chris, what's going on?
So you heard what I said. Are we basically on the same page, and what does the audience need to know that you're suspicious of?
Yeah, so you actually knocked it out of the park in the intro. And again, I believe that what Neville Singham and what the CCP is doing is actually not uncommon for these color revolutions. I think that right now, remember, this is coming at the same time. Within the last couple of weeks, we've actually been able, the FBI has actually obtained and arrested multiple members of the Chinese government that actually were trying to smuggle in agro-terrorism into the United States. What I can tell you is that I don't think that this comes at an off time. I think that if you look at what happened in 2019 with COVID-19 amidst negotiations with China as well then, I do believe the Chinese government knows what they're doing. They're smart and they're dangerous. And I think that right now, instead of focusing on what they're trying to do, which is race-bait Hispanic Americans into thinking that this is about deporting immigrants or deporting illegals, it's not about that. They're actually using that as a ruse, just like during BLM, Black Americans were used under the same ruse to usher in Marxism. And what I will tell you is the funding and the money that we are seeing coming actually into Neville Singham's pocketbook, and then also that are being distributed among some of these nonprofit and organizations. It's actually money directly from the CCP. Actually, under the last administration, under Garland, Senator Rubio and then also to Senator Lindsey Graham wrote a message to Merrick Garland actually asking him to investigate Neville Singham under FAR violations, and the administration never followed up. So I'm very serious about what I'm saying. It's not just me, it's the entire Oversight Committee in Congress that will be issuing that testimony. If Neville Singham does not show up, he will be then held in contempt of Congress. And this is a different administration. We are not playing games. Right now, you are seeing right now in real time, things are heating up in the Middle East. You're seeing China actually just activated its own ships into the Pacific for the first time. They are not our friends. Although I know President Trump is currently engaged in negotiations with Xi Jinping, and it seems to have gone well, at the end of the day, China wants to be number one. And in order to do that, they have to knock us off the block, if you will. And so we need to be very aware of this and understand that at the end of the day, it's not about clicks. It's not about ratings. It's about keeping our country number one, first and premier in the world. And we have to make sure that we know exactly who we're dealing with.
Two questions. One, do you believe or do you have reason to suspect that Chinese influence expands beyond what we're seeing in Los Angeles to the other protests? And do you believe that this issue should be part of the administration's negotiations with China?
I do believe that it expands past that. I can tell you that there's also groups actively in Washington that we know are also speaking on the issue of Israel and what's happening right now over there. Code Pink is one of them. They actually said that they were going to file an ethics complaint against me because I actually pulled up their funding from the Communist Chinese Party and also called them communist agents. So what I can tell you is it doesn't just stop there. I mean, everything from bot farms on social media to accounts that you'll see pop up. I do believe maybe even some influencers are paid to push pro-Chinese propaganda. But I also think that the administration is well aware of this. You know, Secretary Rubio, of all people, has been actually tough on this, and he will continue to have his eyes on these issues. I think that they know very well that it doesn't just stop there. We know that there are the Confucius Institutes that pop up. And frankly, my main concern also is that China's operating in South America. I just got back from meeting with President Bukele. I've met with the Honduran government. I can tell you that they are not our friends. And actually speaking to what's currently happening in the Middle East, at least I can bring you one positive piece of information, Chris, for you and your viewers, and that I actually just got off the phone with the Syrian government, and the Syrian government within the next couple of days, potentially next couple of hours, will be reaching out to the Israeli government. I've heard and definitely been able to pass the information that the Syrian government has expressed the willingness to join in the Abraham Accords and that they do not want war with Israel. And so I think that that's at least the one positive note that we can take from all of this.
Have you heard in Syria that there is an Islamist extreme group going around trying to hunt down Christians?
Yeah, and I will tell you that, especially just being a member of Foreign Affairs, that we obviously are tracking that ISIS is still a problem there, but the new administration in Syria is obviously not supportive of that. And they also want to ensure that Christians also are protected in their region. But also to understand that Syria right now is in a very fragile state. And so we are working to lift sanctions and codify President Trump's executive order, and then also to foster those foreign relationships. So I will be extending an invitation to the president of Syria to come meet with us. I know that there's actually a bipartisan effort to support Syria in this gentle state. And we also hope that Israel and Syria can start speaking directly in a positive fashion, because I believe right now that we need calm and level heads. I know that we have great leadership out of the White House that's going to continue to foster these relationships. But, you know, what we do here has real world implications. And what I can tell you is that when I see all this happening with these riots and protesters, people are looking for clickbait instead of trying to find the actual root problem. And we find the root problem being funded from China. I take a personal issue with that because there's big, big implications. Many people can get hurt. So we have to make sure that we're staying level headed about all of this.
Anna Paulina Luna, thank you for chasing this down. We're here if there's any message or insight that needs to get to the American people. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, we'll talk again. 4 minutes and 35 seconds coming up. First of all, I told you that it was bigger than just this one thing. You know, you guys think that it's some kind of conspiracy. I'm not a conspiracist. Trump announced today on Truth Social, you heard Anna Paulina Luna talking about it, that the deal is done. Look, my reporting suggests that's not the case. It's moving in the right direction, but it's not done. Bill O'Reilly says he spoke to the president about the deal, which he was told, quote, is subject to final approval. I wonder what, if anything, was discussed about this issue. And if China wants access to our markets, should there be a condition that they're not trying to destroy our country? O'Reilly, there he is, next. So Bill O'Reilly joins me now. He was just over in China, and he was just on the phone with the president about dealings with China, so perfect guest. What do you think of Representative Luna's initiative on this? Do you think it is worth chasing down?
I like her. She needs to get a little more context, though, and I am here to provide it for everybody, including you, Cuomo. So, under the Biden administration, Chinese espionage went up about 1,000% in the United States. And you saw that with the Chinese buying up property all over the country. So the balloons. Recently, you saw the Michigan people with the fungus arrested. And when the Trump administration came in, Kash Patel, the FBI chief, was tasked very quietly with keeping an eye on the growing espionage threat with China. Okay? And Patel, I don't know, I don't have access to him on a daily basis, but I know that he is devoting a lot of time and manpower to tracking these espionage people. That's number one. Number two, it's separate from the trade economic situation. There's no doubt that China wants to harm the United States. Anybody who doesn't think that is being foolish and naive. But China is also dependent on us. And when I spoke to President Trump this morning, he was very optimistic about the trade with China improving dramatically. I'm not so optimistic. I'm neutral on it because the Chinese,
Smart.
as that great last line in the movie Chinatown, when Jack Nicholson is standing there befuddled and the cop looks at him and goes, "Jake, it's Chinatown."
Chinatown.
What that means is anything could happen at any time, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm neutral, but I would be doing exactly what President Trump is doing as far as trying to get the Chinese to enter into a partnership for peace and prosperity with America. If that happens, things all over the globe will improve. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I've devoted a lot of my personal time, a lot of it, to trying to advance this. I paid my own way to Beijing at their invitation, and that thing that I did seems to be paying off. But I want to get, you did a good monologue on the California thing, but you left out some stuff, Cuomo. So the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights is a militant far-left group. It has ties to the Open Society Foundation run by Cuomo?
China.
Soros. So
I don't buy the Soros
Coalition
bricks
for
thing,
Humane,
but he definitely puts money into it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They have ties to Soros. Very important. So this organization, this Humane Immigrant Rights Organization, banded together with the Service Employees International Union and the LA Teachers Union to contrive this whole protest in Los Angeles. They planned it. They knew when the raids were going to happen. They mobilized their militant anti-American people who go out, and they provided masks and frozen water bottles and defensive gear. It was very well organized. Here's the kicker. Gavin Newsom and the state of California had given the Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights $34 million of taxpayer money in 2023 and more to come fiscal year 24. The Biden administration gave the group $200,000, and if Harris had been elected, would have gone up to about $500,000. Okay, so in effect, Newsom in California paid for the organized protests that the police chief of Los Angeles said was out of control and beyond our capacity to tamp it down. That's what the police chief said, and that's why Trump mobilized. Okay, so all of that information I've just given you, if people want to read it and download it, is on BillO'Reilly.com in my message. But it is harrowing that all of this is taking place and the American public has no blanket idea because the only one reporting it is NewsNation. You're not going to see it in the LA Times or on ABC News or on Fox News or any of those other places. John Solomon, all right, who runs a Just the News outfit, he's way ahead on this story. I want to give him credit, okay? But this is a very frightening story that all of this money and the state of California, the largest state in the union, has been co-opted by these people, and no one knows about it.
Well, look, I think that you're right about the numbers. I actually had them in the monologue. I took them out because it's, for me, not about left-right politics. It's about fundamentalism. And it's about these groups being susceptible to much more radical tendencies than just a teachers' union. And that's my concern, is that I see a common link. It is not a coincidence that that guy who shot up the Israeli embassy is in line with Singham's groups. And I think that fundamentalism is being funded there. I think it's being funded by our enemies, China,
absolutely right.
Russia, others. And I think that that's the big enemy. And I don't know why we're making up fights between left and right when there's someone who wants to kill all of them.
Okay. All right, but let's advance the story and forget about the cranks. Now, let's go to the Middle East, because this is hot. There's going to be a negotiation this weekend between Witkoff and the mullahs. This is the last chance. Trump does not want to participate in the bombing of Iran. He's made that clear.
Can I ask you one
behind the
quick
scenes
thing?
to Netanyahu.
Can you help me understand one quick thing? I like Witkoff from what I know about him. I'm not saying this in any disrespectful way. We don't have anybody more plugged in to the politics, the history, the culture, and you know, the themes than a guy who does commercial real estate in New York who just knows Trump.
Well, he's got a good staff, Witkoff, and he's a very good negotiator. So I don't know him personally. I've never met him. But I know the structure that he's operating under, and I don't have any problem with it. He presents a case pretty well. But here's what the American public needs to know. Trump does not want to bomb Iran, okay?
Good.
Because that upends everything. It upends the China deal, it upends Ukraine, it upends the worldwide economy, it creates terrorism, the Abraham Accords would then be tougher to get. It's
going to create terror attacks here at home.
It would do, the unintended consequences would be staggering of it. There is no plan B. The mullahs are going to have to stop. Now, whether they will or not, if I had to bet tonight, I would say they will. There will be a deal. Because once the military thing is in motion, that's the end of Tehran. They're through. It's not going to be like a pat. It's going to be boom. Ports are going to go, nuclear facilities going to go, and the Persians are going to starve, literally starve. So if the mullahs want to go and commit suicide, then they won't make the deal. I'm betting they don't want to commit. They always take it up to the brink. But this time, with Israel ready to go right now, that's why you, and good reporting tonight, Cuomo, good for you, good for you. And if people are watching the other networks, you're not going to get close to what's being put out to you here. The British know that if this doesn't work this weekend, then all hell is going to break loose, and they have to alert their shipping. All right, everybody has to alert because it could
You know
happen.
what I'm worried about is, and I don't want to see this happen. I hope Witkoff is successful. Again, in no way am I trying to disparage the guy. I hope it goes well. I'm just saying it's a weird fit. But you're going to have this perverse situation. You do something to Iran, and these same psycho radicals that believe they have some connection to the people in Gaza are going to take up the cause of that theocracy in Iran. And we're going to have violence all over the place in America of people, you know, people pleading the case for people they don't even know.
If you look at the numbers that came out on the anti-ICE, they're infinitesimal. Nobody came out. There's no organic, as that's your word. It's not George Floyd. Nobody came out.
Oh, no, not even
and
close.
At 9 o'clock in New York City, very few people came out. In New York City, the epicenter of left-wing politics, okay? about 1,000 people showed up in Foley Square, and by 9 o'clock, they all went home to watch
You're totally right.
NewsNation.
You're totally right.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
know.
But
And I
you're
usually
totally right.
am,
But
by
it
the
only
way.
takes one guy. It only takes one guy
Yeah, I know,
to do
but
something
you've
stupid.
got to report the story. You got to report the story in context. And I would tell Congresswoman Luna, who I don't know, you're really good at presenting the case, but you need to broaden it out a little bit. So on the China front, I know what's going on because I'm right in the middle of it. I talked to these people face to face for almost 3 hours. I know what's going on there, and I'm not little Bo Peep. I know what they're doing, but it's containable, and there's no plan B. Either détente or chaos. That's it.
Gotcha.
And Trump, to his credit, understands that big picture. So let's all band together and hope that we get a deal with China, that the mullahs pull back. What do they need to enrich uranium? For what? You don't need it.
To kill us.
Nobody's going to attack
That's
you.
why. They need it to kill us.
Well, okay,
That's
but
why.
If that's the case, then we have to take them out.
No question.
Right?
Well, I don't know how you do it, but you certainly can't let them get a bomb. BillO'Reilly.com, if you want the context and the deep dive on what's happening here and how it is all connected. He's got a good piece out on it, and there's going to be more to come. Bill, thank you for making your witness tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Always. 4 minutes and 30 seconds coming up. You've heard the take on the protests. I want to get a Democrat in here, okay, for what his party's posture is on this, because let's be honest, a lot of these groups fomenting the tension right now against ICE are lefty groups. They're not righty groups. So what is the right play for his party, and what does he make of this situation? And did you hear what just happened in the Democratic ranks? They want to redo their elections to get rid of some of the radical lefties they just put into positions of power. Is that a good sign? Next. All right, let's bring in Chuck Roachcher. Chuck's got a new Substack that he's doing. I'm going to get the name of it right now. What's it called?
Roachcher Revolution.
That's it, Roachcher Revolution. Thank you very much. Kind of fell in love with you when you were on the show the other night. You are, you're just a great lens into what's happening with your party. So I understand that the party took out Haag and Kenyatta. They're going to redo the elections. Is that a sign that you see what's happening within the party in Los Angeles, and you're like, we got to stop owning this radical stuff? It's killing us.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that have protested peacefully, who have good intentions and are doing what I encourage every American to do that has any kind of disagreement with their government. There's a lot of people all over the world who don't have the right to protest. We do. This is good for America when you do that. What's bad for America is what you described. When you have bad actors and folks that are burning cars, standing and pushing on cops, those are the imagery that Donald Trump wants to see, whether you believe it, not you, Chris. America wants to believe it or not, because this is a good thing for him. It's one of the most strongest issues of why, as a Democrat, I will say this, he got elected. There was $890 million spent on one issue in the last election, Chris. I've done this research. It's on my website on the issue of immigration. Republicans knew they needed to use immigration to juxtapose the abortion issue for Democrats, and they did it well. So when he shows quote unquote chaos on the streets of LA, when he shows cars burning by some bad actors who should be put in jail and put in jail for a long time, they're disrepresenting anything that has to do with immigration. They're just being freaking idiots. Then that's what's got to happen. But Donald Trump is sitting back going, I'll send all the cops, all the Marines, and all the National Guards I need to show strength and show that I'm in control, because it's good for his brand. And to be honest, it's good for him in the midterms.
But why don't you guys try to take back your core issues that he took from you? Small businesses are getting terrified. A term I took from my brother-in-law, though my producer Ben used it even before he did, but I wasn't on the show that night, so it doesn't count. And why aren't you guys owning that? And instead of saying Trump sucks, the tariffs suck, his deals suck, why aren't you coming out with what you used to have in the party as it was when you and I grew up with it, which was, here's what we would do for small business, and here's what he should have done with taxes, and here's what should happen with Medicaid? Where is that?
It's a great point, and I talk about this all the time because I'm one of the folks saying we got to rebuild the brand of the party. The party brand is what's broken, and there's two things of why I joined this party as a union steelworker back in the 90s is because my grandmother taught me that Democrats were the party of workers and Republicans were the party of rich folks. We've totally abandoned that narrative, and we let Trump do that. There's two things that you have to do to actually win elections. And this goes across all you boys and girls at home who want to be a political consultant, write this down. You have to show a reason to fire the person in charge. In this instance, it's the Republicans. To your point, Chris, we do that really good. This sucks. That's bad. Don't do this. But what we have a hard time doing is what you're talking about. What do you stand for, Democrat? What is your core value? When I joined the party, it was for workers, it was for health care, it was for public education, and to make sure we had safe neighborhoods. I haven't heard a Democrat talk about those four things in a long time. If we're going to go back to winning elections, we have to return to that on what we're for while saying what we're against.
I got a new one for the against. Whoever grabs the mantle of fighting fundamentalism is going to be well positioned for the next 5 or 6 years. I know that America has a habit of trying to think that something happens once, it won't happen again. We did the war on terror already, it's over. I'm telling you, it's coming back. They are smart enough to see that we hate each other right now, and they are using it. That's why we're seeing more protests around the country and less guys blowing themselves up in front of places. This works better. And China's behind it. You're going to hear Iran is behind it, and these other fundamentalist groups that want to take us out. Nobody's fighting that fight right now. Luna was on the show. She's starting to look at it. She's getting ahead of you guys.
You make a great point here, and it's the point of there's way more in America that draws us together than pulls us apart. But we highlight, to your point, some people may be manipulating that to show the differences of what we have, but there's way more that brings us together. Let's talk about Congress for just 1 second. There's 435 congressional seats in America, and 400 of them are safe blue or safe red. That means they don't have to worry about the opposition party. They only have to worry about the fringes of our own party, whether it's the far left with the Democrats or with Republicans, the far right. And when you have no competition, you run to your corners and then you throw food at the other side without coming up with any solutions. To your point, Chris, if we were looking at actually black, white, young, and old, there's way more that brings us together as a country than drives us apart. But lots of people around the world, to your point, would love to see us pulling each other apart.
Well, we are, and they're starting to use it. You know, that's why you get this guy, Elias Rodriguez, who decides to abandon his life, abandon the legacy of his family, of making it in this country and working hard. Not only does he go hunting Jews, but he just waits afterwards. That's fundamentalism. And whoever gets a hold on that and starts speaking to it and breaking up the money and breaking up the power and attacking the fringes that feed it, they're going to be well positioned. Chuck, I want to keep this conversation going. I appreciate you. I wish you well with the Roachcher revolution on Substack, and you're always welcome to make the case here. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, brother, be well. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I want to give small businesses a platform. Why? Because they're the engine of the economy, and they don't get a lot of the breaks that the big corporations get. They can't deal with the tariffs as well, and people aren't making their case. And they're not getting helped out really in the tax bill either. And I've seen it personally, okay? There's a friend of mine who I've been trying to help with their small business, which has a great product called Gym in a Box. So she calls me up and she says, hey, bonehead, my business is about to go under. And as an immigrant here, I do feel targeted. You don't get how this feels. You don't get how it feels as a small business person. You don't know what's happening to us. So you know what I said? Nika, come on and tell everybody. Nika and Nico run Gym in a Box. She is an American entrepreneur, okay? She came here for it. Now she may have to leave because of what's happening. She's here to make the case of what's happening to businesses all over the country. Please, listen to what she has to say next. Running a small business is hard, but it's also the engine of the American economy, and I would say it's fundamental to the fabric of the American dream. Tariffs have made it harder for many. How many? Depends on whose number you want to see. 1 in 3, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, 4 out of 10 are being terrified. What does that mean? Supply slowdowns, price increases. They're having trouble with inventory. They don't have the money for marketing. They don't have the reserves to absorb these increases the way big companies do. They don't get the breaks that the big companies do. Almost 7 in 10 see tougher times ahead and a need to either lose workers or shut down, or they're desperate for capital. Now, we don't hear about this very often. Why? Well, for one side of the equation, they can't talk about it because it's seen as anti-administration. I will never play that game, okay? I am pro-American business and workers, and the truth is enough. Now, last week, I had the head of Trump's Small Business Administration on to be a fair broker on this and to ask her, what are you going to do about these small businesses? Here's what she had to say.
While President Trump is advancing fair trade, he's also advancing lowering our spending, lowering our taxes, reducing regulation, that red tape that just strangles small businesses. I saw it in my own family growing up in a small family business. We have to make sure that this government is working for Main Street instead of Main Street working for this government.
Look, it's a good line, but it's just not as simple as that. How do I know? Because I have people who run small businesses in my life, okay? And I have one who I asked to come on tonight as a favor to me, not what she wants to do, but she believes, you know, in my asking her. And she's not living that fix. And now she has a new concern. As a legal immigrant, she feels that her place in America may be at risk. And that sucks, because Nika Cristiani and her husband, Nico, are what America's all about. The owner of many small businesses, but one is called Jim in a Box. And it's a company I believe in, not just because they're my friends, but because it works and it's really cost effective, or it was before all this BS that we're living through right now with the tariffs. So I asked Nika to come on, and she joins me now. Thank you, my friend, for taking the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. Thank you for creating awareness for all of us business owners.
So this will be one segment that you don't beat me over the head with on social media for not making this case. Nika is my friend. I am a big respecter of her personally and of her business, but she cares about this stuff. She cares about what's happening with immigration in this country as a legal immigrant, and her business has been compromised. What is the reality? You were doing well. You work through China. What have the tariffs meant?
Well, I love your expression, terrified, by the way. That's awesome. So I watched when Kelly Loeffler, by the way, it's a German last name, so she's obviously an immigrant like me. She said that the Trump administration is doing everything for small business. I would like to kindly ask her, what exactly are they doing for small business? Just name one thing, because what we are facing right now is she's basically saying, oh, in order to overcome the tariff situation, we're going to help you get loans. Like, loans is some kind of a gift. I mean, first of all, no one is getting loans right now. That's the reality. You know it. You've mentioned it many times. And also, what am I going to do with a loan? So they are basically demolishing my business and then saying, well, but you can get a loan now. That is really crazy talk, because what's happening right now, we used to produce our technology in California prior to the pandemic. Then we got the lockdowns under the Trump administration. So we were one of like a handful of American companies who actually produced technology here in America and made it affordable for Americans. But then we had to look for the China chain because there were the lockdowns. So that's how we built that chain. It worked perfectly. This way we were able to produce products that help Americans get healthier, fitter, stronger, in a natural way, non-invasive, and reduce their pain. And that worked really great. So what is happening now? I'm producing in Shenzhen, China. I pay everything over there. I pay the manufacturing. I pay for them to send it here. I pay, everything that is required. And then now I sent you the text message that I'm getting now. Just 2 days ago, I got my last big order, and I paid everything already. And then DHL, they're sending me a text message saying I have to pay 145% on top of what I already paid, or they will resend my product back to China within 5 days. So I have 5 days to either come up with 145% of that amount on top, or they're going to send back my product. That could literally bankrupt us. I'm working, we have a TV show on QVC in Europe, in Germany, and in UK, and now we were supposed to have that in America. But if you work with a billion-dollar American corporation, as I do, and I negotiate prices with them, that is a process that takes around 1 year until it hits the shelves. The same with if I sell in Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods, okay? So that means I negotiated a price with QVC 1 year ago. That was great for me. I made a lot of profit. I would make a lot of profit. But now, because I'm paying 145% more, if they order, like I'm sitting on all these purchase orders, $500,000, sometimes $1 million, and I have to pay 145% on top of that now, or they send back my product to China, that's means bankruptcy. And I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I pushed through the pandemic, not one bankruptcy. I always, took care of our American employees and everything. And now that, so I'm paying to DHL, or they won't deliver it to our warehouse in California.
So Nika, let's do this.
Or in Vegas.
So let's see. So let's see what they say happens with this deal. And then I want you to come back and see what the reality is for businesses. I'm out of time on the show, but I wanted to give you the time. Nika, you and your husband, Nico, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for believing in the country. Thank you for trying to make it work. And thank you for sending me Jim in the Box to help me with my beer belly. I appreciate you.
We
Thank
appreciate you.
Nika Cristiani, to be continued. Thank you for being on with me. We'll be right back. Keep your small business stories coming to my Instagram and tell people to follow it, and we'll keep the conversation going. No, you don't have to be my friend to get on the show, but it helps. Small businesses matter. We'll stay on it. That's a News Nation pledge. Leland Vittert takes the baton.
But it helps.
It does help.
There you go. I'm waiting for the fishing companies to come, the lure companies, the hats. Yeah.
I need that stuff. Anything I can get for free, I'll have them on the show.
All right. No, see, now we know how it works. Cuomo, it's good to see you as always. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.